All right, ladies and gentlemen, today we have an excellent show. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. This week we have Ryan Lanigan on, and he is a bit of a political enthusiast. He's a resident of the south end of the uptown St. John area, and he actually ran for the Green Party at one point, which is interesting. And he's a family man. He's a professional, he's down-to-earth, very cool guy, and he's well-informed on a lot of the current issues that are in Canada, around the world, and even within the city. So Ryan and I, we go way back. We actually used to bartend together, and we went to university together where he took political science. So strap in and get ready, because this is the second episode of the podcast. Enjoy.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can't handle the truth.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
Gentlemen,
I don't give a damn.
you have my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
This is the Harrison Fisher Podcast.
All right, and we are live.
Nice.
How you doing, good sir?
Good, how are you?
Excellent.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Not a problem. Great way to spend a Sunday afternoon.
Yep. Actually, I have a couple beer here. If
Yes.
you'd like to have one.
Yeah, fire one up.
So I failed to mention last time that our unofficial sponsor is Picaroons.
welcome to become official sponsors anytime soon.
Yeah, exactly. If you guys want to donate anything, more than welcome. But yeah, I don't have a glass.
That's good enough. Bottle's fine.
Big old bottle. Want a warmer?
Yes.
You like that?
Until you get one.
So actually, it's funny. I was talking to them in there, Picaroons Uptown.
Yeah.
Did you notice that it doesn't say Dark and Stormy Night anymore?
Well, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you know why?
They had a lawsuit against Gosling's Rum.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Gosling used to make it with their dark rum and spicy ginger ale.
Yeah, and they
Yeah,
called it a Dark
and Stormy.
But the thing is like, that's just like a traditional drink.
Yeah, how do you claim
Right.
that? I don't understand.
Because, like, that would be like Smirnoff saying, putting cranberry juice, lime, and whatever else you put in.
It'd be like owning a screwdriver.
Right.
Like, how could you...
Put orange juice and vodka in a bottle and then sue anyone who tries to call a beer a screwdriver.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of silly.
It was silly. I'd never... Yeah, Dark and Stormy, and it was like the trademark Goslings. Here, cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, I never quite understood that, but now it's just what, DSN?
DSN, yeah. That was the other one. Do you remember, I think it was called Scores,
Yes.
and Grannon owned that place.
That was,
it was passed between, I think, Jamie and
Chris.
And there's a chain in Quebec, and it's called Scores.
Yeah, Pizza of the Light owns it. It's their pizza. I thought
Right.
that was, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that's when it became Wingers.
Wingers.
I had this conversation at Picaroons the other day too. We were going over a lot of the businesses that have come and gone in the uptown area. Yeah, over the last few years, because it's really felt like it's gotten a lot busier.
Yeah.
It's gotten a lot busier.
The more you move that, you might get a little bit of interference.
Okay, I won't touch it.
Hands off!
This is the first time. This is the first time for everything, right?
Podcast virgin.
Yes, absolutely. Well, a fan. This is kind of nice. I've always wanted to try it.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
It's kind of been the placeholder, taking the place of talk radio for...
Yeah. I have satellite too, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's still like television. It's always running. There's always commercials. There's always something there. And it's just like, no, I just want to dial in. And it's like, I'd say it's an analogy for binge watching Netflix shows. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
So like I have to drive for hours sometimes, or
Me too.
I'm on an airplane where there's no Wi-Fi or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like I can just dial in and listen to exactly what it is that I want to listen to.
Yeah.
So, like what I was saying about what we were talking about with the restaurants uptown, I was in the city in the fall, and I saw all of these restaurants popping up, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, it's going to be a cold winter.
And it has been a cold winter.
Yeah, and I don't mean that, like, literally from, like, a temperature standpoint. I mean, like, you know, wintertime is typically the time where it's less busy in the restaurant industry. And how many of these places are going to close?
Yeah, well, you have experience in the restaurant industry, and so do I. It's just, it's always been, you know, after the Christmas rush, gets a little quiet in November, and then it picks right up around in December. But man, January, February, and what we got now coming in March, it's going to be a long time.
Yeah. And so I thought of that, and then, like, we're beginning of March now. And I'm actually kind of impressed that a lot of them have managed to stay open and everyone's going strong. I think like the uptown area, people are actually going back to it where it used to be like, Boston Pizza, like was the cool new.
Yeah, like the box, the cookie cutter, the 15 years ago. Cookie cutter box restaurants out on the east side. But, you know, there's been, like I've ran into probably 2 or 3 sets of parents of people that I grew up with who sold their houses in the suburbs and then moved uptown. So that's like older people whose their kids are my age. They've moved out. They don't need the 4-bedroom house with the big yard out in Quispam or Grand Bay. So they sold those houses and now they're moving into like townhouses and stuff in uptown St. John. So, you know, that small influx of residents probably helps a number of those
100%.
businesses. Yeah.
I was reading something about a proposed tax, like a touristy tax of some kind. And they were talking about like the breakdown of the percentage of where it would go and what it would be doing.
Yeah.
On a practical level.
Yeah.
And a portion of it was supposed to be going to advertising for people to move to St. John from other parts of the country.
Okay.
And I thought about that, and I think it was like the chunk of it was like $30,000, and I'm thinking like, how could you have the most impact with 30 or maybe I think it was like $40,000 or something like that. And I always thought that it would be a cool marketing campaign to try to draw people to come to the city. Imagine advertising, you know, $180,000 condo. And then just fail to put the address on it and put it in the classifieds in Toronto and see how many calls
come your way for it. Yeah, yeah.
Right, because that same condo is going to be like, you know, $600,000.
If,
right?
Yeah,
and half the size. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
They just came out with micro condos in Toronto, and people have bought them.
2 steps away from sleeping pods.
Yeah, it's I guess near the intersection of, I want to say, College and something, and it's a really hot area. 290 square feet.
Oh my god!
And they're renting them for $1,600.
Oh my god! Well, we get to call it. We give things funny names, but it's really just a small apartment.
It's like a closet.
Yeah, right? it's a micro condo.
yeah, make it chic, right?
Yeah, give it a trendy name and see what happens.
So, you follow politics pretty closely.
Yeah,
and before we get into
fun with it,
yes, yeah, I notice you're always tongue in cheek or very sly with a lot of the shit that you say.
Yeah,
but you have to be, right?
You gotta be.
You can't.
Be. Too many people take it too serious nowadays.
And so I've been going on Facebook a lot less and posting on Facebook a lot less.
Yeah.
And the reason I've been going on less is because I've started to notice just how dumb some people are, and I used to want to jump in and correct them or make fun of them or whatever, and now it's just like, there's so much it's not even worth engaging.
Yeah, what's the time?
Yeah,
where's the time at to do that? And you're not going to change. Listen, you're not going to change anyone's mind with a comment on Facebook.
No,
you're not going to change anybody's mind.
Yeah.
You may be able to get someone to laugh or think about something a little bit differently, but ultimately they're pretty much set in their ways.
So, I picked out a couple of the different things that you had posted about. And
Who knows? Who knows what that could have been?
I wrote them down. So first of all, let me ask this question. Would you consider yourself left-leaning or right-leaning?
That's a loaded question.
I know it's not that black and white, but like, would you sit like middle of the road?
Yeah, the eternal centrist.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what I would consider myself. I definitely am on the left on some topics and on the right on some others. I mean, it all kind of depends. What I see that a rational person should be thinking about and how they should be thinking about it is kind of how I frame it. And obviously there's insane extremes on both ends that people are pushing, I guess. I don't know. It's to peg myself into left or right, I don't know, I couldn't really say.
Yeah.
Yeah, couldn't really say.
I'm 100%. And I used to think that I was very left-leaning. And then...
the majority of people generally do.
Yeah, but... So, I'm very open, like, change my mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
change
whenever
my mind, yeah.
Yeah, but whenever I get into a discussion, with air quotes, with someone about politics, the first thing that I will ask now is if I were to be able to tell you something that would change your view of this, would you change your mind on it?
Yeah.
I ask that question first. If the answer is no,
Then there's no
you just
reason
can't
to
change it. That's just a hard belief that person has, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm very fluid. I'm very flexible when it comes to my own opinion on things.
Yeah.
And so, I got into a discussion with someone who is very right-leaning.
Yeah.
And, he's a buddy of mine. He works out in the oil patch. And he's always posting about, climate change isn't real and blah, 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 which I think that's absolute bullshit. You can't change my opinion on that. But when it came to fracking.
Yeah. Hot topic.
Very hot topic.
Yeah.
And like, what an opportunity for the province to make a bunch of money. But at the same time,
There are
huge
concerns.
potential of,
Disaster.
right.
Yeah.
So, I asked him, I said, change my mind.
Yeah.
And he said to me, which is something that I didn't know, but BC, which in my mind is very, eco-conscious.
Yeah.
Right?
Only province to elect a federal Green Party member.
Okay.
BC.
Okay.
Elizabeth May. Yeah.
Yeah. They have the most amount of fracking wells and have been doing it for the longest in Canada. Supposedly.
Canada, really? Okay. Yeah,
Supposedly.
yeah.
This is what he told me.
Yeah.
I didn't dig into the facts, but if that is the case, well then, and he likened it to airbags, right? The airbags that came out in the 80s were...
Not the airbags of today.
they were the Mike Tyson punch, and they would literally knock you out.
Yeah.
Save your life.
Yeah.
But,
The fracking of the 60s isn't the fracking of
exactly.
today. Yeah.
And I guess a lot of the Netflix documentaries that were kind of surrounded around, like painting the picture of what fracking was.
Pennsylvania and stuff where it
Exactly.
really first started. So.
They were the old ways of fracking.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, well, you can see that in industry, it's not always perfect, but they do strive to minimize their impact.
Yeah.
I mean, industry doesn't want to poison the wells. They don't want to destroy things. And you really got to keep them in check and remind them that the public is ultimately interested in safety and environmental consciousness.
Sustainability,
Sustainability when it comes to things. I mean, but it becomes, like with anything, it becomes, change my mind. There are people that are not going to be willing to change their mind. And that's what the landscape is nowadays, I feel, politically. Like, we have people that are not going to change their mind. The constant confirmation bias behind what they believe. And it's really we're seeing this polarizing, and it's becoming difficult to have rational conversations.
Yeah, people aren't willing to bend on any of their beliefs, right?
And
especially when you get behind a keyboard.
Yeah.
And it's, people instantly take it personally, and they're like, no, this guy he's an asshole. And
yeah, we just throw around things, comments, and like there's not real people on the other side, and people forget that. But it's just, and the internet's kind of brought that to light. I mean, I believe this always existed, with people, but they just didn't have the means to communicate it to one another.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's just what we're seeing. This hyping up of everything is centered around this.
Yeah.
It's really gotten to a high level.
So, what do you think about fracking?
Fracking in the province. I mean, on scale, I want to see success for New Brunswick, and it is an opportunity for us to have. I mean, Sussex was gearing up. They had a potash mine.
Yep, which is closed now?
Closed.
Right.
So, like, they were going to have a potash mine and fracking, and that's a small community, and I know people from that community, and you want to see them have jobs and continue to find success in their life in the province. Yeah. But then, I mean, moratorium on fracking shut those dreams down. Potash mine closing, and I've seen people that now that.
So what about what is the moratorium on fracking?
The Liberal government back in, I think, what was it, 2010 when Brian Glant won.
Okay.
Was that the right year?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember.
Try not to say something. Yeah.
If you don't
Jamie,
know,
pull
just
that
I
out.
don't know, right? I don't know.
Where's our producer to pull this stuff up?
Yeah, we need a Jamie.
Yeah. But they slapped a moratorium because it became one of those election issues where the Conservatives said they were going to say yes. So obviously the opposition party is going to say we're going to say no,
Right.
and make it an election issue, and it's like almost a referendum on the topic. So the Liberals won. They said no fracking in the province,
Right.
and they slapped it down. So that industry just went away. Well, not entirely. I mean, they do have some staff still here because they need to monitor wells and look after the infrastructure that's in place. But as a revenue generating industry, it doesn't exist in the province.
It's crazy.
And I feel bad for guys that I know that work in the trades and stuff, and they've had to move out of Sussex.
Yep.
They got to go find jobs elsewhere. They got to move west. They got to move into the city. They can't live in their hometowns and work in their hometowns. And it's kind of heartbreaking.
So if there was a magic pill, what do you think getting people back to the province would be? And I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm just like...
Developing some of our natural resources would help.
Yeah. Yeah.
It would certainly help.
Yeah.
Getting people back to our province.
Right.
But
Yeah,
an
I don't know.
opportunity. Young people would look for opportunity, and if there isn't any, they're not going to feel like there is some. They're going to go elsewhere and find it.
Right.
I mean, I count myself fortunate, and I imagine you do too, that we can still live here and find jobs in this province.
So fortunate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
Thankful every day for being able to work and stay home with family. I mean, a lot of people ask, when you're young, and they're like, "Are you going to move away for an opportunity?"
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I have a lot of family here. I'd like to stay around them. And
I think that living here in the city, a lot of people discount just how affordable housing is.
Yeah.
Compared to national.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My favorite thing to do when people come in traveling from out of province is take them around to houses and have them guess how much they are.
Yep. Yeah. When we were in Ontario, we had a 2-bedroom plus den where I had my office.
Yeah.
It was in a brand new condo build. And we were renting it though. We didn't own it.
Yeah.
And, we were paying about $2,000.
Yeah.
And because we had gas hooked up as well. So,
okay.
So between the gas and the rent, it was about $2,000.
Yeah.
And, for that condo, they started selling in and around 400. And as soon as they went on the market, people bought like 3 at a time.
Yeah.
And they were reselling them for like 700, 725.
Instant markup and trying.
Instantly.
Yeah.
So like, it's a completely different, paradigm out here where you can go and buy a place for $200,000. And
Easily.
people are like, my thinking when I grew up was $200,000. That's a really expensive home.
Yeah.
That's among some of the cheapest homes in Canada.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have that. We're lucky enough not to have that foreign influence of money that inflates our real estate costs too, because that's a big concern.
Yep.
With like BC and now
They're saying that bubble's
Ontario.
popping in Vancouver.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. And they passed some laws, I think, to try to mitigate
Foreign buyers tax.
Foreign buyers tax.
They did that. They did that in the GTA as well. And you know what happened? All of the foreign buyers started just moving out to the closet communities.
Yeah, absolutely. They're gonna spend their money somewhere else. So it's just,
and people, they're just literally getting pushed out further.
Yeah.
They're buying out further and further outside of the GTA, so they're just driving farther to get into work.
It's not a recipe for success, is it?
Like, I know people personally that drive 5 hours a day, so 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours back, and they have to leave at
disgusting.
like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
To beat the traffic,
Beat
right?
the traffic. It's not I don't know how you could buy into that sort of lifestyle. I mean,
it's
waste
insane.
all that time in the car.
Yeah.
But I drive for work every day to get places.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I waste a lot of time in the car, but I'm not putting those hours and kilometers on just
to get to
work.
A brick and mortar place where you sit down and work for 8 hours.
And
right?
then have to hop back in the car and drive home. I don't know what kind of life that would be, man.
13-hour day dedicated just to your living, right?
Yeah, only getting paid for 8 of it, too.
That's right. That's right.
Lots of guys work 12 and 13-hour days, but they get paid the whole time.
So that sounds super outlandish to us. But then if you say to someone in Ontario, hey, move to the East Coast, make $50,000 less. Oh, I could never do that.
Yeah, but you don't know what.
Yeah, but
money goes a lot further here.
Exactly.
Your housing cost is smaller. Your travel time is smaller. The cost of living.
Yeah. Can you put a price on quality of life?
No, you can't.
Right.
That's a big question.
Yeah. So I was out in Newfoundland and one of the guys, he's like, where are you from? And I was living in Ontario at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, Ontario. He's like, oh yeah, do me a favor. I said, what's that? He's like, don't tell anyone about how nice it is here in Newfoundland.
Yeah, because they don't want to hear it from you, from Ontario.
Exactly.
Bugger off, Central.
You're kind of, I guess, middle of the road, or you're split up on different left and right leaning topics.
Yeah. Middle of the road. Try to apply as much as what I can see or think or hear of.
Mm-hmm.
Over things. When we start labeling things, it's immediately when the conversation usually breaks down.
Right.
And then it becomes us versus them.
Right.
Right. And it's your rational discussion's kind of gone out the window at that point.
Now, I don't know about individual candidacy in Canada, but I know when it comes to the States, it's very two-party.
Yeah.
You have to be
one or the other.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're starting to see, like, even within those two parties, we're starting to see polarization, right? Like
Bernie
and everyone that supports him on the Democratic side, and the AOC people, and then versus the, Pelosi and the established Democratic party, and then you've got Republicans that are never Trumpers, that are just, they're in the Republican Party, but they do not recognize that man at all as any sort of leader. So
he's a nut.
So we're starting to see the breakdown of that two-party system, but will it ever go away? I don't think so. It's really what their system is designed around.
What do you think of that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez?
AOC.
Yeah. What do you think of her?
Shaking it up.
Man.
Shaking it up.
She's a bullet.
Yeah. Yeah, she's certainly making some heads spin, that's for sure.
Did you see the questioning that she had there for Michael Cohen?
No,
the Senate hearing?
I couldn't stomach that testimony.
No,
Wednesday was a big day.
Yeah.
It was a big day. The news cycle is fast and loose, and Wednesday was a big day.
Yeah.
We had the JWR testimony here in Canada, the Cohen testimony in the States, and then to top the whole thing off, Alex Jones was on Rogan for 5 hours. So it was a big day. Yeah. Oh.
So who is the Canadian there that you had mentioned just now?
JWR.
Okay, so
like AOC, everyone's got a nice acronym to their name nowadays. So.
Right. I purposely have not read a thing about SNC-Lavalin. I know nothing about it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I would really like for you to fill me in on that.
What a big question. So like SNC-Lavalin, like, all you got to do is pull up their wiki page, and you see that this company's been involved in fraud and legal trouble since the 90s. Like, it's just been this
But how does that feed back to the Liberals? Like, what does that have to do with?
Well, they were up on the RCMP had investigated them and was pressing charges back in 2015.
Okay.
So this was going to go to court. Just another day in the life of SNC Lavalin.
Yeah.
So that was in 2015, and then the Liberals in 2016, I think, put forward deferred prosecution agreements, DPAs, I think they called them.
Mm-hmm.
So this allowed for a company to not be charged criminally for fraud allegations, that they, almost like community service instead of like a prison sentence, or, to stay off criminal charges.
Okay.
And the whole idea was to protect the economy and protect jobs and give these businesses, a redemption arc that they can get back on.
Yeah.
So the DPA, the prosecutor in Canada, decided that they weren't going to pursue one of these deferred prosecution agreements with SNC Lavalin.
For which charges?
For their fraud charges.
Okay.
So fraud, corruption, it has to do with some jobs they did in Libya. So like I said.
What is it? Was it Gaddafi?
Yeah.
Gaddafi's son?
Gaddafi's son came to Canada. They threw a bunch of money at him while he was here.
Right.
Just real stuff that makes your skin crawl when you hear about it.
So them proposing whatever that, slap on the wrist legislation is.
Yes.
Is that against the law to do?
No, it's not against the law.
So what's the controversy?
The controversy is the prosecution decided that they were going to move ahead with criminal charges, and that the Liberal government didn't want SNC Lavalin to be criminally charged.
Okay.
They wanted the Attorney General's office and the prosecution to pursue a DPA agreement. And they were threatening to move out of Montreal and lose jobs and everything. So the prosecution in Canada is supposed to be independent of any political influence.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a constitution. It's
same thing in the States with
same thing. You don't want people being prosecuted and having the government influence it.
Yeah.
You want to be charged and you want to be on trial for your own actions without any sort of outside influence from, the government. Right? So they were really adamant that the Attorney General use her office to persuade the prosecution to do a DPA agreement on SC Lavalin.
And this is JWR?
Yeah, she was the Attorney General.
Okay.
Right, so she can oversee these things. And they said that they weren't. They didn't believe that the case merited pursuing the slap on the wrist legislation. That this company was involved in corruption, fraud, and needed to be persecuted. Under the law. And so, if you watch, when the story broke in the Globe and Mail, I think back in December, I was following it a little bit. It didn't look good. It didn't look good at all. But after I watched her testimony, I just stopped reading about anything about it. I just been basing my opinion based on that testimony that she gave, because it was honestly incredible. She's well prepared, well spoken, and had appeared before, a committee on it. And they attempted to politically interfere in the court system.
So does Trump, does Trudeau, the T's, does Trudeau have mud on his hands?
Absolutely.
So is there something is there a paper trail that is linking back to him where he said, no, we shouldn't pursue
in the
charges
testimony,
against
she
SNC?
mentioned over 10 phone calls, emails, conversations, in-person meetings, all regarding this SNC Lavalin.
That's interesting.
She mentioned times where she told them that they needed to back off because they were teetering on that, they've made their decision, they're sticking by it, and they continue to pursue it. That she told them on multiple times that it was going to be inappropriate what they've done. And, that's probably the sign where you should have put probably the brakes on it.
That's insane.
Right? When the Attorney General tells you that you're starting to borderline be inappropriate in the way you're pursuing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, she said, I believe she used the word hounded in her testimony.
Well, it blows me away that, well, I guess it doesn't blow me away. It blows me away that, it seems like Trudeau's such a I don't know. I want to say do-gooder, but with a positive connotation.
Sunny ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's quite the stain on his brand.
Yeah.
Because you have him up there standing, saying he was just trying to protect jobs, which we generally think that's something that the right and conservatives try to do. It's
Sounds
all about
good.
the economy.
Sounds
We're protecting jobs, but I don't know, as she mentioned in her testimony, are we a nation ruled by law, or do we bend the rules for certain people?
Exactly.
And when we get into rule bending, that's when the wheels really start to come off on stuff.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and then they shuffled her out of the cabinet. Obviously, she didn't do what they wanted her to do.
And she was a whistleblower.
And she was a whistleblower, so
Yeah.
we see her get shuffled at Attorney General and over to Veteran Affairs. So it stinks.
Yeah.
It stinks really bad.
Yeah.
And it's we're like a few hundred days away from a campaign. We
Yep.
go to the polls here in Canada in September, I believe. Like it's
Well, so I ran into Wayne Long
yeah.
at the airport last weekend,
Yeah.
and he was
He's
headed
been
to.
the Maverick. I've been calling him the Maverick for weeks now.
He's shook
Oh
things
my
up a bit,
God.
right? And so like
St. Johners love it too.
they do, and I don't blame them, because you know what? Like he's I don't want to call him anti-establishment, because I don't think that that's necessary. Like I don't know enough to be able to make a claim like that.
Yeah.
But what I will say is the fact that he, goes in and says, well, wait a second, I'm not going to vote along, or I'm not going to just go along with the party
Yeah.
and do what it is that you tell me to do.
Yeah.
No, I think that we actually need a public inquiry, and we need to know.
Yeah. Well, he was the one. So he was calling on, and it was crazy. He came out and called on, he wanted an ethics commissioner inquiry
Yeah.
into this case. And he was all over the headlines here in St. John. And then I would say within the hour, the ethics commissioner announced that they were going to do an investigation into it. So he was out in front of that story for a reason, I think. And then he took off on vacation for a week. He just dropped a bombshell and then walked away from it.
Well, I
And
think,
then,
I don't know if people vote for the candidate or if they vote for the party. I think
it's our parliamentary system here in Canada, right? Like we don't, in the States, they vote for their president.
Yeah.
In Canada, we vote for our local representative that represents the party. That party has a leader. They
For sure,
become the
but
prime
what I mean to say, I guess, and I know, like, you get a ballot and it's not going to say Trudeau on it.
No.
It's going to say Wayne Long, right?
Yeah, and then it says liberals and
Right.
brackets.
So
Yeah.
the thing is, though, is if people want to give Trudeau the boot, then they can't vote for Wayne Long.
No, it puts the electric in St. John in like a very tough position.
Exactly. And then,
A lot of-
because the flip side of that is I really like Wayne Long because he is,
Stood with all the integrity in the world.
100%.
Yeah.
And I want to vote for that guy. So, I think it would be nice to think that people would understand that 30,000-foot view, and they
Yeah.
would think, you know what, I'm going to vote for Wayne Long, knowing that the Liberals likely won't make it because of the rest of the country's probably going to vote Trudeau out.
Yeah.
By way of all of those MPs.
All those other MPs, yeah, not getting.
But at least
seats.
Wayne Long will stay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
But he might be on the opposite side in the opposition, which traditionally you don't get as much funding if you're not in the government, right? Things are.
right.
Usually you want your local representative to be on the right side of the house, right?
Right.
So I know it puts everyone in a tough position. Like I personally like Wayne. What he's done over the last few weeks is nothing short of just encouraging to see, when we're dealing with a scandal of integrity and fraud on a federal level, to have your local MP stand up on the right side of things.
Yeah.
And, it puts people in a tough position.
So you had ran for office, didn't you?
I didn't run for office. I ran for nomination to get the name on the ticket for the Green Party in St. John.
Okay.
So it was just an internal party. You had to be a party member to vote. You had to be there at the time. So
Okay. I don't know much about the Green Party.
it works the same as all the other parties.
Yeah.
But you usually have an internal vote to see who you want to put forward in the general.
Right.
Yeah. So I ran against Wayne Dreyer
Okay.
for the Green Party nomination.
Did he get it?
No, I didn't get it.
No. Did he got it?
Oh yeah, Wayne
got
Dreyer.
it.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Wayne ran to represent St. John Harbor in our last provincial election, which too was an absolute nightmare.
Shit show, right?
Yeah,
What
still is.
What's going on with that? There's a guy there, and he's a teacher at St. John High.
Was
a teacher at St. John High.
Barry Ogden, yeah.
Yes, that guy.
Yeah, so it was a tight race here in St. John.
I think that guy is just being a sore loser. And what I think is really telling of his mode of operation was he was very active on Twitter, and he was very quick to point out all of the positive things that he was contributing towards the community.
Yeah, he did a ton of community work.
Doing a bunch of PR, though, essentially.
Essentially, yeah.
Because if you look at the continuum of anyone's Twitter, right, it usually has a theme that continues on regardless of whether you get office. But as soon as that happened, go and look at the last tweet that he has on his account, and it's from last year, and he's like, if anyone wants to drive to the polling stations...
That was it. Yeah, it really dropped off.
Yeah, he just fell off the face of the earth. Yeah. So, he's contesting 9 votes or something like that.
Yeah, I think he lost by 10 votes.
He's a sore loser.
You're thinking he's a sore loser?
I think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, so what's your opinion on the guy?
I'll take the other side of this one because, we like to stand up and think that we have this great democracy that's untouchable and uninfluential. And, I think he's brought to light some inconsistencies in some of the voting. They have already identified one person that voted twice. Wasn't from St. John, from another electoral district that casted a vote in St. John. So you're only supposed to vote within where you live, right?
Right.
So I mean, yeah, you could say he's being a sore loser, but you could say that this is also good for our elections.
To test whether or not it's legit.
To make sure that we're going over these things with fine-tooth combs, that they run as good machines and produce results that people are confident in. Because if we lose confidence in our election results...
Agreed. Yeah.
Then what is the point? Like, we already have terrible turnout.
Yeah.
I think there was like a 60% turnout or even less. It was more than the last election, but still continues in the trend over the last 30 years.
Right.
Where it's just so... Yeah, you can look at it, you can point the finger at him and call him a sore loser, but it helps with the integrity of our electoral system. There's no doubt about it, and they go back to court, I think, tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Tomorrow is the 4th, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, so they go back to court tomorrow to take another look at this.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, is there an independent investigator? Do you know?
It's in the court system. So I think the defendant, Jerry Lowe would be playing, the defendant would be Elections New Brunswick.
Okay.
And I don't know if they have an independent third-party investigator.
Right.
But, I mean, even Jerry Lowe said that I think they made these mistakes in every riding throughout the province. I don't know what Jerry's talking about. He's not making it any better.
So he was the one who won it.
He's the one who won, yeah, but I saw some quotes that he said. Yeah, I think these mistakes have been made in every riding throughout the province. What are you doing, Jerry? That
doesn't give me much confidence in the system.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe he doesn't get it.
I don't think he gets it.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know what they're pushing for, but I mean, with comments like that, now what do we do? Do we look at other ridings? Because there were other seats that were only decided by 20, 25 votes.
Wow.
But if Barry doesn't do what he's doing, none of this gets looked at. It all goes away.
I can get behind that because, if you think of countries like Russia and the meddling that happens in their elections, literally garbage bags full of ballots.
Never get counted.
They're literally thrown in the trash, and it's seen on, CCTV, and it doesn't ever touch their media.
No. So, I think it's ultimately good for Barry that he's doing this. Okay. It may not come out with the result that he wants.
Yep.
Then we can call him a sore loser. He pisses and moans about it when it doesn't go his way.
Well, I think
But
that, it should come out in the wash. And
Exactly.
I don't know what the goal is of taking Elections Canada to court on it. But to take them to task and at least have an independent investigation, I think that that's fine. I think that, and have we got that far? I don't know. There hasn't been, I don't know.
I don't know. They've been to court a couple times. I think it's Patty Nason's her name, who's the elections New Brunswick representative.
Yeah.
And, they use words like dozens found, inconsistencies, dozens of them. I mean, he only won by 10 votes. So what are these dozens? Do they throw out all these and then change? And then do we have, the implications of it are pretty big.
So there needs to be a report. We could have another
by-election here in St. John if this goes a certain way.
Interesting.
But I think it's ultimately good that we put it under the microscope.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm all for transparency. I think that it's, the more you can be transparent, the more faith you'll have in the system and the more things go on.
Exactly.
Because if you're discouraged by that point, it's like, okay, well,
What's
it's like,
the point of
imagine
voting?
if we were living in a dictatorship.
Yeah.
It's just, you wouldn't even want to go that far, right?
No, exactly. So, but we need to keep this confidence in our institutions.
Yeah. 100%.
Otherwise, it just becomes Russia. I don't know. Maybe the Russians were involved. Who knows?
Yeah. No.
I don't think they care about the outcome of St. John Harbor.
No. So I was going to ask you too, what do you think about the museum that was supposed to go uptown?
What a shame.
Yeah.
So this is like one of those things, like, this is where the spectrum, like, ask me if it's left or right. Like, so I would say I'm right leaning on some policies and left leaning on others. But I want to see the museum built.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to see it built.
Someone explained this to me, and they explained it really well, and they changed my mind.
Oh, really?
They did.
Oh, so there we go.
So I heard, we're going to take, how many millions of dollars was it? Millions.
Millions of
dollars.
And it would have been millions more. You
Right.
know it's going over by.
Oh, they always do.
Yeah.
So it turns out that, my first clue was like, okay, we're spending millions of dollars on a museum when there are, there's a perfectly good museum uptown in a space that we rent.
Perfectly good, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll use air quotations for that.
Yeah.
But, it will suffice, right? So, like, if you consider your opportunity cost, like, what could we take that money and do with, right?
Exactly.
And do with it. So, someone pointed out to me that this was an amount of money that was earmarked from, like, federally, that whatever the museum commission or whatever that body is that runs the museum, that they had gone and applied for it to get it. And it was like, you can use it for a museum, or we're just not giving you any money.
Yeah, well, like,
there was no alternative. Like, we didn't have a choice. I think that that's what people don't know, is that there wasn't a choice to use it for something else.
Yeah, no, the federal money, there wasn't a choice to use it for something else.
Right.
But, like, usually these deals, and I think it was this one, the federal government is just matching what the province does.
Yeah.
So the province has to put in $1 and the federal money matches $1. But yes, you're right. It wasn't like money that could have been used for something else.
Right.
It was designated for a museum. And if you're not going to build one, then you don't get the money.
Right. And I think, like, when I heard that, I was like, oh, well, in that case, yeah, throw a museum there.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all for, like, museums like a cultural spending. And I mean, the New Brunswick Museum's, I believe, the longest continuous operating museum in North America.
Oh, really?
And one of the first in Canada. And I mean, yeah, the one we have now suffice, but it sits in the corner of a shopping mall.
Yeah.
I want to see something beautiful.
Like the library in Halifax. Have you seen that?
Yes.
On Spring
I've
Garden
seen that.
Road?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. So, like, the right side of this equation was, this is money that's not well spent, but the side of me that thinks, like, well, yeah, this is well spent.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen a museum.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so my prior way of thinking about it was, I was under the impression that you could use it for something else. I was thinking, how is this going to bring any money to New Brunswick? This is just going to be an expense, an ongoing expense.
Yeah. Well.
But then I found out that the museum that is on Douglas Avenue, which is where I don't know if there's public access to it, but
it's a records one. I don't know if you can just walk in. I think you have to like make an appointment if you want to go see it. Yeah.
Right.
And it's just a records building, I think.
Right. So, and it's also a place where they do a lot of research, but the place is falling apart.
Yes.
And the costs to keeping that thing afloat are actually more than what the portion of the matching would have been
to build a new one.
Yeah,
exactly.
Even if it had gone over budget.
That makes perfect sense.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I don't know how we ended up losing it, but now we're in a boat where we actually have a higher expense overall, and we don't have a big, beautiful building uptown.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's usually how government policy works.
So someone changed my mind on that, and I was glad that they did because, I think about that differently.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was me too. I was thinking, yeah, the museum is an expense. Yeah, this money probably could be spent elsewhere, but then I'm like, at the same time, like, a big, beautiful museum, the oldest one in Canada.
Well,
still ticking away, looks amazing, taken out of a shopping mall, and, kind of given what it deserves for being as old as it is.
Now, when the cruise ships show up, they have a big,
Beautiful.
Empty dirt lot to look at.
Yeah, exactly.
What I think is awesome is I saw on Facebook when we had an ice storm there.
Oh, yeah.
And you were down
Oh, yeah, I went down for a skate. It was a Friday. Awesome. It was a Friday afternoon, and I saw Wayne posted that there was this natural skating rink, and I was like, "Man, I'm going down for a skate. This will never happen again. Like, this is beautiful." So yeah, I went down for a skate. It was fun. Yeah, I skated around for a bit, and Wayne's wife came down. There was a couple other people that came down and saw it and went for a skate as well.
It's cool.
But yeah, it was definitely cool. It made me think we need an outdoor rink somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, especially had they figured out the thing with the museum and said, "Hey, we're not doing it anymore," they should have just built a rink there, at least for one winter.
Yeah,
until they figure out what they're going to do with it. Right?
Yeah, or something. And instead of it just being an empty lot now, which is sad. And I think they're going to take down that other building adjacent to that lot as well. Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of prime real estate down in the harborfront nowadays. Oh, yeah. So a big, beautiful museum would have been. Yeah, 100%. Would have been nice. I would have liked it. I would have applauded it. Yeah. Big time. And, it's when I had when they canceled the Francophone games. I was all on board with that.
Okay, so let's talk about the Francophone games. What do you think about that?
Oh man, what a scam that must have been. Yeah. Jeez. The original proposal was like $17 million the cost was. And then it went to like 160.
Yeah, it just ballooned.
It ballooned.
But wasn't there something where they were doing like multi-million-dollar deals, but they weren't putting them out to tender? And because maybe I'm just talking on my ass. I don't know much about the
and I'd heard there was like infrastructure spending wasn't like in the proposal at first. Yeah. Yeah, like you need to build stuff for these games to come here.
Right. And the deals though that were going on behind closed doors weren't going out to tender, and they were going to people that
of course,
were friends of whoever it was that was deciding.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course. No, it was and that's a big question that, faces a lot of these huge sporting events now is there's a lot of fraud and corruption involved in them.
Absolutely.
I mean, every 2 years we see someone from FIFA getting brought up on fraud charges.
100%.
I mean, we haven't seen too much in the Olympics yet, but I imagine if someone takes a look at it.
Well, the thing about the Olympics is you get these cities that, their eyes are bigger than their stomachs, and they invest all of this money in the infrastructure, and then
can't maintain
1 year later, it's a ghost town.
It's a ghost town. Can't maintain it.
So I had friends that went over to South Korea for the Winter Olympics.
Okay, yeah.
And they were talking about the trains, and I was looking at the Instagram stories of this friend that I have. Yeah. And there was no one on the train. Like,
sense.
just absolutely unsustainable, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that was going on during the games, imagine what it's going to be like, you know, when there's this mass exodus of people that are there for the Olympics.
It's just, it's a huge expense, and we just know that it's these cities, they just can't. And I'm pretty sure SNC Lavalin was involved in the Montreal games too.
Oh,
Yeah.
no doubt.
I'm pretty sure I saw that on the long list of legal trouble that companies had.
It's funny.
I think the roof of that stadium cost a lot more than the stadium, and they were
Interesting.
Yeah, I think they were involved in that too. It's just, imagine my shock.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm ultimately happy. I mean, it is, and again, like I said, with the museum, culturally, it's kind of sad that we weren't able to do it. But I mean, these are the consequences of out of control spending in this province for decades.
100%.
And we have to live with them, I guess.
Yeah.
Don't really have a choice, it seems. Yeah. And obviously, you know, a majority of New Brunswickers gave a mandate to Blaine Higgs to cut costs. Here we are.
Right.
Oh,
right.
I mean, it was a slim majority.
Yeah.
Not even a true majority. I mean, he's still a minority government, but this is where a lot of New Brunswickers sit, and they want to cut the costs. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we pay outrageous taxes, and there's a lot of wasted spending. And
how much do New Brunswickers pay in taxes compared to the rest of Canada? Do you know?
It's probably, I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. I was talking to someone in Quebec about it. I was in an Uber in Quebec last week, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, how much taxes do you pay?" I was like, "I think it's high." He's like, "Not as high as Quebec." I was like, well, I think you guys get mighty hefty transfer payments.
I think we're 1 and 2. Yeah, and they get heavy equalization.
But
payments.
you know, so
do we. So do we.
Yeah, I can't really say anything. But
and so do we. Yeah.
So you were talking about going down there to the rink. You walked down from your place uptown, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It was right in the neighborhood.
So how long have you been uptown?
I've lived uptown for, I think I want to say 8 years.
Sweet.
8 years, yeah. So we've been in our current place for 4, and we were in an apartment before that. So yeah.
Okay.
I think it's been about a better part of 8 years that we've lived uptown. Love it.
Yeah.
Everything's close by.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Narrapis, New Brunswick.
Narrapis?
Outside Grand Bay, Westfield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There's a river that runs up through that way, right?
Yes, Narrapis River.
The Narrapis River.
There you go, right? Yeah. No, I grew up outside the city. When I graduated high school and started at UNBSJ, I moved into the city to be closer to school. And
okay.
You know, it was...
Are your parents still out there?
No. My mom lives in the city now. My dad lives out in Maces Bay.
Maces Bay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, I moved into the city and I've been in there. So that would have been 2006, and I was on the west side until I moved uptown.
Lower West, Upper West?
Spruce Lake, so off Ocean West Way. Yeah. Yeah,
like we were talking earlier when you were coming in about housing, and found a house. Sweet. That one that I was telling you.
Yeah.
And you were looking at it too.
Yeah, I'm shopping for houses every day.
Yeah.
I do love uptown, but I've got a growing family, and I don't know how long we're going to stay there. And a nice big beautiful building went up in my neighborhood, so I'm thinking I could offload my house for a decent price to somebody that wants to walk to work.
Well, you're talking about the Irving building.
Oh, yeah. It would be nice when it's done and I can get my neighborhood back without constant interruption.
Yeah. Construction, it's been going on for a while.
Oh, yeah, it's been a long...
Wasn't that supposed to open in the fall?
Oh, yeah.
What happened? Like,
man, I can just imagine. Delays. Like, it's a project of, like, a magnitude I've never seen take place at Uptown St. John, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's insane. It's huge.
It's changed the way that people are thinking about Uptown, too. Like, a friend of mine, she works with kids, and she bought a 2-dwelling building.
Yeah.
And so 2 very big apartments, like 3 bedrooms. And I would say like the square footage would probably be like, I don't know, 1,600 square feet per.
Yeah.
Or maybe like even up to 2,000 per.
Yeah.
And so she's opening a daycare.
Smart move.
Downstairs. And I'm like, yeah. And I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's right down the street from the Irving. And I was like, yeah, you probably wouldn't have a hard time finding
No.
clients that want to drop their kid off right there.
Right there.
And then walk up to work.
Walk
right?
up to work, yeah.
Yeah.
Park in the parking lot, walk your kid over to daycare, and then walk to work.
Yeah, and it's like right, she lives right around the corner from that building.
Oh, I don't doubt it. I mean, like, all the businesses around there are going to benefit.
Mm-hmm.
All the lunch spots, all the coffee spots, everything is going to benefit from it.
Yeah.
The real estate market will benefit from it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm ultimately happy about it.
Yeah.
Being a resident, a little bit annoyed by the construction phase, but the payoff will be there.
Yeah.
No, it's been insane. What they've built, and they put up the parking garage too.
Mm-hmm.
JDI's built a parking garage too. So like, we talked about the restaurants that are opening and the businesses that come and go and stuff. And it's nice to see some big bucks come in and do some
People
stuff.
are going to be walking down the hill to go to, a Port City Royal or whatever. Right?
Oh yeah.
Friday drinks. Right?
Yeah. The spin-offs will be big. You got to get some shopping done in your lunch break.
Yep.
Run over wherever, grab something.
Yeah.
As opposed to going anywhere else.
As much flack as some people in St. John give Irving, I will say that like that move, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and I mean, it hit its hiccups too.
Yeah.
You remember, was it the guy from the Historical Society?
Oh
He's
yeah. What is it,
complaining.
like, no building can be taller than a church?
Yeah, or
Like, get
it
over
was
it.
something, how close it was to the road or the curb or something. And then Irving just said, no, we're not going to build it.
Yeah. That's that Elsie Wayne mentality. Like,
yes.
I want to keep everything old.
Yeah. I mean,
Like, why?
I mean, when you've been to like one of the most beautiful and outrageous places I've been is Dublin, Ireland.
Okay.
The-
I've never been. I've always wanted to go.
The Guinness Brewery is the only building in the whole city that's over 3 stories tall. Like, there's no skyscrapers.
Really?
There's no nothing. It's like, just very much like St. John.
Yeah.
Like, we have, a half dozen buildings that are taller than anything in that entire city. So, and it keeps the charm. And that's why and I've talked to enough people that get off cruise ships and walk around our city that love it because of the charm and
Yeah. The old brick, right?
the old brick and how it feels like the old neighborhoods in the cities that they grew up back in the States that don't exist anymore. The buildings that are flattened.
Yeah.
And even when you go to Toronto, like every building, I remember when I was there this summer, you walk by and there's like, the little brick buildings. Every single one of them has a sign out front that says proposed development for this lot.
Yeah.
And it's got a picture of a skyscraper that's going to go up on there.
Condo buildings are going up everywhere.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
We talk about it is striking that balance between, like a renewal and like bringing new businesses and new investments, but not losing the character of your city.
Yeah.
And I think a reason why that Historica, I just picked this book up at the library the other day and I was flipping through it, The Lost City, when the urban renewal project went through St. John and they built the Harbor Bridge. There was communities that they just flattened.
Are you talking about on the west side?
Between the west side and also off Main Street where the bridge goes across.
Oh yeah.
There were communities there, houses, businesses, everything that they just
I've seen
dropped
pictures of Main Street, North End back in the day, and like that was like
it was a crazy spot.
super busy.
Yeah. And this book, The Lost City, it's called. I can't remember who wrote it now. Or
I think I've
took
seen
the
that.
pictures. Yeah, I've seen it around, and they did kind of like a photo documentary of these old neighborhoods that just don't exist anymore because
That's cool.
of this project. So I think things like that, the urban renewal, it kind of put a lot of people in St. John off to the idea of like just doubling down on mass and development.
So you think that like putting that bridge in at the time would have turned people off, and even people of that generation that would have continued on would have like pushed that mentality down
a little bit. Yeah.
Right.
That maybe we shouldn't think that, building new buildings and bringing stuff in is the best idea, because you can lose the character of your town.
Yeah. I think that there can be a mix of old and new.
Yeah,
and that
certainly.
They can live...
It's just striking that right balance between the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I truly think St. John's a beautiful city. Like, just walking around down Grandin Street, Horsefield, like some of the streets in the old buildings, it's breathtakingly beautiful.
Yeah.
And you don't want to lose that. You don't want to see that go by the wayside.
I agree with that, but then when you get houses like those people were calling them the jelly bean houses.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, right across.
Tear them down. Those things are a hazard.
Like if no one's going to put the money in.
That's it. And no one is going to put the money into something like that, because you're looking at a perpetual project that you need to be doing. And sorry, my phone's ringing. And it's a never-ending project, and it's going to cost you way more than it would to just wreck the thing and build new. Even if you had to build it to the spec of the old style,
Well, like one of the buildings I can bring up that's kind of in the same thing that's right on my street is Gothic Arches.
Yeah.
Like, so that's...
Was someone going to buy that and turn it into condos?
How much money? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody was. I've seen drawings for it and stuff, but it's got a for sale sign out in front of it again. So.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that's a building that the city and people are going to have a serious discussion about what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's this big, beautiful church. It's a gorgeous church. I mean, inside and out, it was like they don't build cathedrals or churches like that anymore.
Not a chance.
Not a chance, right? But it's falling apart.
Yeah.
And they got to figure out what to do with it.
There's that one, and then the one on Germain too. Just I don't think they have a service there anymore. It's right on Germain.
St. Andrew, St. David's, right? I think it's got two names, and it recently
Okay.
sold too.
Yeah. And then someone told me that the other one that's kind of over by the I want to say like Dorchester area, Hazen Street area. Do you know which one that is? Or it's on Waterloo.
Is that
the Tim's on Waterloo?
Yeah.
Keep going down the street. It's on the left.
It's on the left or on the right?
On the left.
On the left that's the main cathedral, the big one that you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
So they still have services in there.
They still have services.
So I don't know if it was midnight mass or something that was going on, and they had a leak literally in the middle of the church, and no one was allowed to sit.
Well, when you go in there now, they have staging because they redid the roof and they made the roof watertight, but all the plaster on the inside's dried out.
And it's all cracking
It's
and
all
falling.
cracking and falling.
Yeah.
So when you go to service in there now, they have staging up over the middle aisle to keep the plaster from falling on people's heads.
Yeah, imagine you're sitting there, praying or singing,
peaceful,
whatever.
Just peaceful, sitting on your, just kneeling down. No.
Yeah, that sucks though. Like you get these really old churches, and I think that people are going to church less and less.
Well, they are. Well, the reason they dumped a ton of money into that cathedral restoration. The church dumped tons of money into it.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the results of it because they closed 9 other churches in the community.
Okay.
It's just because it's just unsustainable. So they amalgamated all the parishes. And that's a result of that. I mean, when you drive around St. John, it's like every neighborhood got a cathedral.
Yeah.
Like they close, there's the cathedral, the one uptown on Waterloo, Douglas Avenue. Mm-hmm. There was the Holy Trinity. So they closed down the one on Douglas Avenue. They closed down Holy Trinity. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they closed down a lot of them. 9 churches in the St. John Diocese were closed recently.
Crazy.
Yeah. And that's
just goes to show you, like, kind of the changing of the tides. And I think that, I don't want to use the word blame. Maybe the internet's to blame for it, but maybe the internet is kind of a reason for it, that people are not going to church as much.
I don't,
I don't want to get into like a discussion about religion. And
we'll try to avoid that topic.
Yeah, we could talk about politics all day.
We'll try to avoid the religious question for a minute.
But, I think that you must give 10% in tithing Like, people are just like, no.
People rather go to yoga studios, CrossFit.
I call bullshit on that. And regardless of, where you lay on the spectrum for religious beliefs, I think that, if we want to put a round number, like 10% of everything that you make should go towards, your church, then why not instead just say, hey, how about 10% of everything I make goes towards doing something charitable and nice for someone?
Yeah.
Like, you stop, you see a guy that's down on his luck on the corner, it's freezing cold out, and you say, you know what, man? I'm going to get you a room tonight at the Delta because it's supposed to go to 20 below. Right? Spend $200 on the guy. And then, hey, you've done your good deed for the month or whatever, right?
you get your hero biscuit and your pat on the back for
it.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So there was a nice article in the New York Times that looked at, because the biggest province that's facing this issue is Quebec.
Okay.
Like, they built churches in Quebec.
Huge.
Yeah. Every community has an enormous cathedral. Mm-hmm. And they have, the place is just littered with Roman Catholic cathedrals. And they've been selling them off like crazy. And the New York Times did this great piece that surveyed all these people that bought the churches. And we're seeing it in St. John. Like, Natasha's wedding bought the Cornerstone.
Cool spot. I'm in a wedding there this summer.
It was the polling station in the last election, so I was able to walk in and vote there, and I was like, oh my God, this is crazy.
That's cool.
But like, she bought that place and put a ton of money into it. And like, I heard stories that like she's booked for like the next 2 years. And she actually, I believe, the Holy Trinity Church in the North End.
She was looking at another venue.
I think she's got another venue.
Interesting.
Right? So like, and this was the whole idea behind this New York Times article, was like, they're not going to church anymore, but they're finding other ways to make use of this space, and they're becoming things like a wedding venues. Well, all churches used to be wedding venues, or they're becoming gyms or spas. Or just condos, or co-working spaces, which seem to be popping up now. There's 3 of them in St. John. It's just, I think people are just finding ways to make better use of what they already have.
An old professor of mine, he, the Rosse Road, or is it Kennebecasis Road? Whatever one looks at the Kennebecasis River, and you drive along it, the water's on your left and all the houses are on the right.
Okay, yeah. Like Renforth area?
Yeah. Yes, yeah. So if you keep going a little bit, and he's kind of transformed this old church into a house. Yeah.
And there's another one out, if you go out towards Maces Bay, if you take the highway west, out near Prince of Wales along the highway, there's a guy that bought one that turned it into a house, built a great big garage next to it and everything.
That's cool.
Cool. It's just, it's hard to give them a solution.
If the heating costs, like if there were no heating costs, I would go and buy a church and turn it into a house.
Yeah, but you gotta heat the damn thing. You gotta heat 60 feet of empty space.
Right. And a lot of the time, like, that's, you'd be looking at oil likely.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how much oil do you think a church guzzles?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. And like, they have problems like
guaranteed
leaky roofs that they don't have the money to fix.
Yeah. If the one Catholic church uptown that all of these different parishes had amalgamated into to have everyone congregate there, and they can't even fix the ceiling.
Yeah.
Like, what about the one that's up for sale?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And that's what it is. Like, they moved all the parishes to, they even renamed it, but it was, St. Pius, Holy Redeemer it is now, but it's like the newest of the churches in the North End. So like, obviously the plan was, we'll move everybody to the new church with the least amount of problems.
Wow. Hey, so what do you think of tiny homes?
I love them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah. So I got a camp up, like a piece of property.
Yeah.
It's a tiny lawn next to the river. I'll never get environmental approval to put a foundation or anything down.
It's
I don't want to pay double taxes on a camp.
Right.
Right? So,
is it on the it's on the St. John River?
It's on the St. John River, yeah.
Whereabouts?
Up at Oak Point.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Really?
So
It's a really nice area.
I've just got a little travel trailer on it now, but my dream would be to build a tiny home. And put it on there. Yeah, because like when I go up this time of year, like you can't stay overnight in a travel trailer this time of year. But if I had a winterized tiny home, dude, I'd be crashing there.
How much acreage did you get?
Like nothing.
Like nothing.
Like nothing. I don't even think it's like a half acre, not even.
Okay.
It's a tiny patch of grass next.
Does
to
it got water?
Oh yeah, it's all water. It's all beach.
No, does it have like a hookup for water?
Yeah. It grandfathered in for a well and a septic system, but they'll never give me approval for a foundation that close to the water.
If I build a tiny home, can I park it?
This is the problem about telling people you have property upriver. They want to park their trailers on.
Wait a second.
Yeah. They want to park their trailers on your property for the summer. Yeah. So I just, I want to, my dream is like once I get the land paid off, I'm just going to take that and dump it and build a tiny home up there.
That's
like
incredible.
My biggest dream, man.
I follow every single tiny home account on Instagram and I like every single one of the pictures. Like, I'm like in awe every time I come upon them.
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Like if you can't make it up and downstairs, that sucks. Like you're not going to be able to have a tiny home.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to have a tiny home.
But I think like otherwise, if you're relatively agile and you don't mind living in a small space,
then pick a small space.
You could get a 650 square foot tiny home with 2 bedrooms.
Yeah.
Stand-up shower, bathroom, regular gas kitchen.
Yeah.
And all those modern finishings. And I don't know what they run. Like that'd probably be like $100,000 for a big, nice one.
Yeah, we'll say, yeah.
But hey, $100,000 for a home. Like if you're living in Vancouver, that's now a viable option.
Yeah. I've seen there's a few people around St. John that I know that have built them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they, they've got property out somewhere in the middle of nowheres and they've been living in an apartment, but they built a tiny home.
That's cool.
Out in the woods there, and eventually they'll move into it, or because the cost is so low on it, they can keep an apartment in the city and a tiny home in the country. It goes back to what we were saying about the micro condo and stuff. It's just kind of funny. We downsize and we give it trendy names. Like, and I saw that article the other week about millennials living in vans. It's like, oh, you're just homeless, aren't you?
Yeah, you're just
because you got an Instagram account now. It's cool. It's just this funny way that we got. Or another one was millennials eat out less and buy less groceries. I'm like, that's a funny way to say that they're starving. It's just we just give it these trendy names and give it this positive
minimalism.
Spin. Yeah,
no, you actually just don't have possessions.
You just don't own anything. Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. But I mean, here I am. I love it, and I think it's what I'm gonna do.
Well, I think if anything, like, to be practical, if you're gonna have a family and stuff, I think it would be challenging to have a mini home or a tiny home.
Yeah.
But with that being said, if you did want to have it as an adjunct to your home and you don't want to pay double tax, especially like here in New Brunswick.
Yeah, what is it?
Park a tiny home.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I mean, I'm going to have a family too, so it would be difficult to live full time in a mini home.
Yeah, that's
but like
too close.
as a second residence, it's perfect.
Yep.
It's
100%.
Perfect. I don't have the size. Like I said, I'll never get any sort of environmental approval for anything because I'm too close to the river.
Yeah.
So that's the route I want to take.
It reminds me of when companies want to advertise on the side of the highway, but it's not in a zoned area.
Yeah.
So they just park a huge semi truck with a big banner on it.
How do I get around this bureaucracy?
Yeah, exactly. That's what that is.
Cake.
So like, if you can do that for advertising, why not for a home, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, so like I'm totally on board with you. I think they're great ideas, and anybody that right now is just overwhelmed with buying a house, I mean, I don't know, consider it, I guess.
So do you know Connor Reed?
Yeah.
So have you talked to him recently?
I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
He hasn't lived in St. John in a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's living in Charlottetown.
Yeah. Okay. That's where I thought he was still at.
And, he's running the
marina
out there.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's not, maybe it's the whole marina. I don't know that detail, but
involved in it somehow.
they opened this restaurant years ago.
Yeah.
And he came in as a manager. He's managing this restaurant. And then eventually he got to a point somehow, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think that he now has ownership in that marina. I believe. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm buying it.
But, the restaurant that he works at is floating. It's a floating restaurant.
Yes. Okay.
So it's right there on the water, downtown Charlottetown, and it's floating on the water. So it's like, I thought about that. I'm wondering if that was just get around the zoning issues, right?
Yeah, get around something. Yeah, how can I get around this government red tape?
So he's got a big floating dock there, and he's out making contacts in the community.
Yeah.
And he gets in touch with this guy who's building tiny homes.
Okay.
And he goes to a shop, and he's watching the guy make it or whatever, and he's like, think you can make one of these things float?
No way.
And he's like, yep, we can try.
Yeah.
So he's got a floating tiny home on the water in Charlottetown.
Crazy.
And so he's renting that out on Airbnb, and they're making a second one right now.
Of course.
And like,
of course.
I guess Charlottetown, as far as vacancy rates go, it's like 0.01.
Really?
You cannot find a place to rent
that place
or
booming, man.
buy in Charlottetown.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I've heard, yeah.
It's all these retirees are going there, and they're like,
going to the island.
That's it.
Yeah.
And, they're buying everything up. It's kind of like what's happening in Toronto, but it's not foreign from, oil money from the Saudis or wherever that
Chinese.
foreign money.
China.
Yeah. It's not coming from China. It's coming from other Canadians,
Other
right?
Canadians. Yeah. Cause I can see that. I mean, I know lots of people that have retired to New Brunswick.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a great play that is. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
And then build one if it's success. Yeah. Airbnb that out.
Yeah.
Make that a moneymaker.
I said to him, that would go over really well in the Muskokas.
Yeah.
So up in Muskoka, to go and rent a place for a weekend, you'd be looking at $1,500, $2,000.
Oof.
And, that's, it's probably going to be a big house or whatever.
Yeah.
But again, if it's you and a couple buddies and you want to crash in a 2-bedroom floating tiny home.
Yeah. Why not?
Why not, right?
Why not?
I said you should franchise that out and get someone in Ontario to get on board.
I think he just blew his cover.
Anyway, no, I think it's a cool idea. I told him he should put a motor on it, but then he was like, then it turns into a boat and you need a boat license and all that.
Yeah.
So
Keep it simple.
He jumps onto his Sea-Doo and he hauls them around the harbor, and
oh man,
it's a pretty cool idea.
That is cool. I feel like I need to go to Charlottetown now and see Connor.
Yeah, 100%.
Catch up with him for a few minutes.
Yeah, I miss that guy.
No, I think he's doing well though, eh?
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
No, it's been a dream. I think, like I said, got to pay off the land first.
So, is that did you just come upon that land, or was it were you looking up in that area?
My father bought across the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we knew a poor old guy that lived on the other side of the street passed away about a year or two after my father bought it. So we hopped on that right away. So now we've got a nice little family spot up on the river. It's great for the kids.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's great, and it's great for our parental peace of mind too.
Yeah.
Just go outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay within sight.
Yeah, you can't get any trouble out there, really.
Yeah.
Worst thing you find is a field snake or something like that.
And it's right across from the campground, so they've got a general store there, and the Evandale's 5 minutes down the road,
cool.
Which is the greatest summertime spot in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, that place. I mean, when you're out, a lot of people, they're out at their camp and there's nothing or no one anywhere is close by.
Yeah.
But this is a nice balance. Whereas if you don't feel like cooking, we can go down to the Evandale and order up some wings and beer.
Yeah. I haven't been there, but I've heard a bunch of people have talked about it.
Man, that place is awesome.
Yeah.
In the summertime. And it's just boat traffic all day.
Yeah.
Restaurant. They get live bands on the weekend. I mean, that place is a cool little spot up on the river.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
My parents are looking at a place up in Queensland. Queensland, I think. Anyway, it's this place. It's got an apple orchard in the backyard.
Oh, very
it's got
cool.
Beach frontage.
Very cool.
And I think it's a couple acres. It's a nice spot.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
I'm all about it. It's like I said, it's nice to get away. As much as I love the city, it's nice to get away from the city.
Yeah.
And it's nice where we live right now. At this time, you don't have to go far. Like it's 30 minutes from door to door.
Right. So,
It's
I mean, not to get into the comparison game over and over and over again, but
it could be 4 hours for you if you live somewhere else.
Here's the funny thing. So I had to travel up to Northern Ontario quite a bit with my old gig.
Yeah.
Like,
desolate place.
ugh, not very nice people. There's nothing out there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And all the hospitals are like regionalized, so there's big hospitals and stuff. But so I had to go out to all these different sites, and you ask anyone downtown Toronto, you say, you know, like, where do you go to get out into nature and get away? Somewhere that's absolutely breathtaking, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And they say, go up to Muskoka.
Yeah.
That's what they'll always say.
Yeah.
We go up to Muskoka. We go up to Muskoka. And if you go along the 400, the highway,
Yeah.
Friday from 2:30 till 9 o'clock at night, it's just jam-packed.
People get
Everyone going up to their cottages.
Yeah.
Right? And so I had to start driving through Muskoka once a week.
Yeah.
Had to. So I know Muskoka really well. And I'd be driving through and I'd stop in these little towns and like I'm looking around and I'm like, this is New Brunswick.
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
And it's hilarious because people are coming out here and spending $1 million for a summer home. Like nice big summer home on the lake, but you pay more for the piece of property, right?
Yeah.
And then you're up there. It's New Brunswick.
Yeah.
So like I'm thinking in my head, imagine if you could just take a snapshot of what New Brunswick looks like and somehow manage to portray that quickly and efficiently to someone who is in Ontario and say, hey, by the way, you can get this piece of property for whatever a piece of property. Yeah.
Back on the East Coast.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess in that case, you'd have to fly and stuff.
I like where you're headed to that, but I don't want any more Centrals out this way.
Like the Newfie said to me, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. Shh, about the secret, what we got here. Otherwise, you're going to ruin it for everybody. No, I wouldn't trade living here for the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't imagine dealing with what other people have to deal with and living in the metro areas that they live in. Yeah. No thanks. No thanks at all. I'll stick to the East Coast and the Maritimes. It's beautiful.
So I'm looking here at a couple different things that I jotted down that I wanted to ask you about. So do you know anything about the high, I think I'm pronouncing this right or wrong, Huawei?
Huawei.
Do you know anything about her? The CFO?
Yeah. Insert China, man.
So, yeah, it's crazy when you think about it.
First of all, have you seen the new phone that they've put out?
I'm sure it's spectacular.
The Mate X or whatever, it's a folding iPhone.
Yeah? Oh.
Or like a folding smartphone.
Folding, yeah.
It's like it goes from phone, like the screen folds. It's the craziest thing.
Huh.
So if it wasn't for the fact that it was like Chinese spying on you,
right.
I'd probably get one. But, right. But yeah, like that's like an interesting question that like a lot of governments around the world are starting to tackle. Like,
well, so
do we allow Chinese smartphone manufacturers into our country on our networks? Because we know they're listening.
and so here's the interesting thing is I guess it's like whoever builds the infrastructure has the skeleton key to the infrastructure.
Absolutely, right?
So if a 5G network gets plugged into Canada and it gets put up by a Chinese company,
yeah,
like say goodbye to all of your privacy. It's gone.
Yeah.
And the big race right now, it's kind of like, the arms race in the Cold War.
21st century.
It's the 21st. Yeah, exactly. So
Who can get their hands on the most data. Yeah.
Who can control the entire system? Because when you have a 5G system that controls the grid, the way that the lights work, your internet, all of your communication systems,
The
like
infrastructure, like it's
everything
crazy.
is interconnected. As soon as you have the joystick to be able to kind of maneuver,
You control it.
you control whatever country that infrastructure's in, right?
Yeah. And that's what they're trying to tackle right now is with this, because I think like a lot of European countries, the Americans don't have them in there. I mean, there's a lot of nations that just will not trust this 5G and this company's network and infrastructure. I mean, the company's founder was a former officer in the People's Liberation Army in China. The woman, the CFO was arrested, was his daughter.
Oh,
Yeah, like it's absolutely wild.
What blows my mind is that, so they arrested her on the request of the United States.
Yeah,
And
that's what blows my mind too.
well, this is the interesting part, is China is retaliating by
Arresting and prosecuting Canadians.
Canadians.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why aren't they doing that to Americans? Americans are the ones that are putting the request in.
I know.
Just
Why
because we
I know.
followed through.
Yeah, my biggest issue with it is why are we doing this at the request of the Americans and sticking our necks out? And then, like, obviously the retaliation, you saw, like, arrests, guys getting sentenced to life in prison. These are Canadian citizens in China that the government's just turned their back on, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I like, so, you know, this is one of the topics you sent me, so I was looking into it. But, like, they're not stopping. They recently announced that they want to do a 15% increase in investment in Canada, do a 20% increase of their workforce.
Are you talking
in
about
Canada.
Huawei?
Yeah, in
Oh.
Canada. Their logo's still on the Hockey Night in Canada desk.
Really?
Like, it blows my mind. And, they just recently came out, like, cause we're gonna extradite her to the US for prosecution.
Yeah.
And, like, what is going on?
That's the other thing that blows my mind is how can they prosecute someone who is a resident of a different country in your country? Like,
yeah, because, like, it's all
who's the
based-
Mexican
it's
drug
all-
dealer?
El Chapo.
El Chapo. Like, guys literally, I'm sure he stepped foot on American soil at one point in his life.
Yeah.
But he lived in Mexico.
In Mexico.
How do you say we want that guy from your country and we
Sent
want
here, yeah.
we want him sent here, or we're going to pick him up out of your country so we can prosecute him in our country, even though he's never
Yeah.
like physically been in that country while committing a crime, quote unquote.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Allegedly.
like, these,
Or no, I think he was prosecuted, right? He's
like,
just-
nations have these, agreements where with other nations that they'll extradite any criminals from their nation to yours, right? And other countries do not play that game at all. Like, China doesn't send, if you're arrested in Canada, China calls you back. They're not going to turn you over,
Right.
right? There's lots of other nations that have that. They're
That's why
like safe havens for their own citizens.
Yeah, that's why Snowden went to Russia.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And, like, Israel won't turn over any of theirs. Like, all these nations, they just won't turn over their own citizens. But, like, Canada and US, obviously we have a long tradition of being able to work together as a force.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it generally does have its benefits, but I mean, I don't see the upside of this case. I mean, we've got Canadian citizens that have been now put in prison for life, or
So do we have to comply with those every single time that they happen, or like if the U.S. comes calling and says, "Hey, we
I'm
want,"
not sure the details of, like, exactly what kind of agreement we have. But,
yeah,
I mean, it's this. I can't see why Canada is just going full in on this when other countries are treating it with such reserve.
mm-hmm.
I can't wrap my head around. I know maybe it's the challenges of infrastructure in Canada. We're such a vast country. I mean, we already pay the highest mobile phone rates in the world because
that blows my mind.
Well, when
You want to talk about owning infrastructure? The 3 telecoms that are in Canada, and I think they just came out with they want to have a public inquiry into why it's costing so much. Like, open up your books.
Yeah.
Let's see what your profit margins look like. Because I guarantee they're like in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it comes back to like you were saying, they hold the keys to the infrastructure. And one of the things, and it was a case that happened, I don't know, I want to say late last year. One of Canada's largest real estate companies was a Chinese organization.
Wow.
And the government, for whatever reason, probably because they didn't like what this guy was doing, threw him up on fraud charges and seized all their real estate assets.
Wow.
And they own billions of dollars worth of real estate in Canada. So technically you could just say that the Chinese government has control of that real estate in Canada. So what's to stop the same thing from happening with data resources,
right,
with this telecoms company?
Yeah.
I mean, someone has to explain to me why when other nations are treating this with such reserve that we're like doubling down on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, clearly, when they come out and say they want to increase investment in their workforce in Canada, despite their CFO being arrested, like, what?
Talk about cognitive dissonance.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's like, wow. It's like, you guys must really have a sweetheart deal or something, because like this is blowing my mind. Like, yeah. I don't know. You won't see me grabbing one of those. Well, I don't know. Folding smartphone seems pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I'd be interested to take a look at it. I actually have 3 phones, which is gross. I feel like a drug dealer. That's gross. Yeah, is that your burner phone there? I actually have a flip phone. That's what rang earlier.
Yeah, that's the burner phone. Yeah. And then you got a work phone and probably a personal smartphone, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I got 3 of them. But
I don't know. And when you look at it, like China's banned. There's no Facebook. There's no Google. They've banned all of North America, or the West's biggest data infrastructure companies, from their own backyard. But like, we're totally okay with them coming into ours. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I think that China does some really interesting things that don't make much sense. It's kind of a broad statement, but so
the China question.
We were talking about it last night. We had a few people over, and we were talking about the social credit score.
Oh yeah,
man, what a concept! So I
saw that they had a list of like thousands of people they banned from flying based on their social credit score.
33 million people.
That many?
Yes.
That they banned last year.
Yep. That
aren't allowed to travel based on their... I mean, that's a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
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 You know what I mean? And it's real life.
Yeah. It's
real life.
A dystopian reality.
Yeah. It's social credit score. And I mean, I was thinking about this a little bit too. Like, we kind of have it a little bit here.
Yeah.
Like social media, like if you find yourself, in the public eye and at the whim of the court of public opinion, that's essentially a social credit score, right? Like, you're just...
Yeah, in a sense. Like, you filter your true beliefs based on what you would post online.
Yeah, exactly. So like, we kind of have... And like, everyone walks around with a phone, and you see all these incidents where people get their picture taken doing this or video recorded doing that. Yeah. And it like kind of keeps everybody in check publicly. Like, they're like, well, we have to really be careful.
I definitely think people are more conscious of what they do and say now.
Yeah.
Especially like even going out to a bar.
Yeah.
And it's funny, like when I,
so it's
camera phone aside,
yeah,
all of that. I always just say, when I was in my 20s, I'd sooner go and party in Halifax because I don't know anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? If I want to get loser drunk and I want to get out on the
not
dance
doing
floor,
it in my hometown.
Right. I don't want to do it in my hometown.
I don't want to do it here where people know
I'm going to know like 50 people. So if you can use that like as an analogy for the way that you act online.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's no other place to really post your thoughts, I guess.
Yeah.
If you're, but I mean, just act civilly, I suppose. But yeah, it keeps people in check. 100%.
Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I don't know.
But imagine,
I certainly don't think it happens somewhat organically here with social media and camera phones. But like I know what you're saying. That's another thing from the government saying, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Everybody is ranked from 1 to 5.
Right. Is that the ranking? Do you know?
I don't know. I'm just picking it.
Whatever it is,
right?
Yeah. Or 1 to 838 or whatever.
Yeah. It's a very illiberal, and it's no surprise that the Chinese have come up with this, but it's a very illiberal concept. Like in the West, we're all supposed to be equal, and we're all supposed to have the ability to redeem ourselves. But a social credit score, like, automatically people are ranked. So you can't say everyone's equal if I have a score of 5 and you've got a score of 3.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to travel because
it's an authoritarian kind of way of thinking of how to govern your people. It's like, well, wait a second, you're not doing this for the people. This is almost to a detriment of the people.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, wait, they're paying taxes for you to tell them that they can't jump on a train and drive and go somewhere, or fly somewhere.
Who knows what else?
Right.
You may not be eligible for certain
loans.
Certain loans.
Like you could have perfect financial credit, but your social credit affects whether you can get a loan.
Exactly. Or you may have terrible financial credit and terrible with handling your money, but your social credit's rating's high, so they just throw money at you. Right? Like that could be it. But it's one of those things that's really coming to the internet and carrying phones around in our pockets is really forcing a big challenge to a lot of these ideas that we've if not taken for granted or held as true for, the better part of a century or more.
Yeah.
Right. Like, when I was thinking about this, I remembered, the book. I can't remember the author's name. Like, he wrote 2 of them, Homo sapiens and Homo Deus.
Okay.
And then there was a chapter in it that said how these social credit scores, these designer babies, these, algorithms, AI, are really going to challenge our liberal establishment where we believe everyone is equal, that you vote and you spend your money as a way. Everyone has a right to vote. Everyone has a right to spend money and have money the way that they want to use it. And it's just, we're really getting to that apex that things are, and I think that's why you see the polarization and the instability that we see now in America, Canada. I mean, I think this election cycle we got coming up is probably going to be the craziest one we've ever seen.
I guarantee you we're going to see more and more American-esque attack campaigns.
It's been American-esque attack campaigns for 20, 30 years. Yeah. It's been going on, but it's going to be, and it's not, and I think it didn't even start in America. I think it started in Europe, and it's kind of found its way in and around the entire West, and we're starting to grapple it with this. And where maybe China's not, because they're authoritarian, they don't have to grapple with it. They just double down and run the direction that they think.
Yeah, do whatever they want.
Do whatever they want.
And I think there started to be a revolt because the current ruler, not prime minister, ruler, I think, of China.
I have to look it up. What his title is?
Yeah, took off term
Emperor
limits
for
or
life,
something like that.
Oh yeah, he elected himself Emperor for life.
Yeah,
leader for life or something. Yeah,
took term limits off, and then
surprise,
you go on the internet in China and you can't find anything about Tiananmen Square.
No,
right?
No,
doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's very Orwellian. Yeah, to borrow that term, and it's just.
I was reading something about. There was, because there's mainland China and then there's Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And in Hong Kong, there was a bookseller who would sell books that were
banned from the mainland.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he made it he went to the mainland for something and just never came back.
Yeah. No surprise.
So yeah, I guess they locked him up and, he came back and shut his bookstore down and
did he go through a re-education program?
Yeah, people like reporters, westernized, or I think it was the New York Times. They were trying to get in touch with him, and he was just like, no comment, no comment, no comment.
Yeah,
and shut it down. And
he learned to love Big Brother, did he?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was re-engineered, right?
Yeah, I don't doubt that for a minute.
So
I mean, it's
and I think that if you look at the States, they're the viewpoint of the rest of the world right now with, Cheeto at the helm.
yeah.
They're not, I don't think that they're looking at the States the same way that they used to look at the States as the number one leading superpower in the world.
Yeah.
And I think it was, I can't remember, there was a couple countries that actually changed the basis of their currency away from the US dollar.
Yeah. Probably Venezuela and anyone else that's on the hit list right now.
Yeah. But that's a scary thought, because what happens when, or if, Americans lose that place in the world, and then it is China, someone who wants to bring in a social credit score and make it global. Which would
arguably what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Brave New World.
Yeah, Brave New World, exactly. Yeah, you're talking about designer babies. We're not too far off from it, right?
So let's talk about designer babies. Did you read up on that at all?
I didn't make too many notes because I've heard about it. Just creeps me out.
It's crazy. Now, hold on. Okay, it creeps you out. Okay, so I'll try a change my mind type of perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know if I'm not full force behind this, but I'll play devil's advocate. So imagine someone comes to you and they say, and you know that you have some genetic defect that makes it so that your kid may potentially be susceptible to
some sort of
disease.
Yes.
And they say, pay $10,000
and
that goes away for your kid.
We'll just erase that.
Do you pay the $10,000 or do you roll the dice?
Man.
Hard question. But that is a slippery slope because, okay, disease is the first thing, but what if I just want my kid to be really athletic or really smart?
Yeah. Certain hair color or eye color or tall or short or whatever.
Like, I want my kid to be able to jump 10 feet in the air.
Yeah. Well, then it becomes, Brave New World where they had different classes of citizens based on their genetic building. And that's why I say it really challenges our liberal point where everyone's created equal no matter what.
Yeah.
If we start mickeying around with it and we're going to create a whole different class of people. Yeah. And then that's going to become a challenge.
So CRISPR-Cas9.
CRISPR-Cas9.
Yeah. The gene editing tool. You can actually, I guess, buy the kit for $200
Stop.
To be able to do it at home, to be able to edit gene structure. I don't know what that looks like on a practical level, but supposedly there is a kit out there that you can buy for a couple $100. And you can do, stuff in your home. If you have the slides and the microscope and all of the other stuff that go along with it.
Yeah, because I think it's they use a bacteria, I think. I
don't know much about how it works on a practical level. But, I think across the world, everyone essentially agreed, okay, we can do trials in mice, we can do trials in, chimpanzees or whatever. But when it comes to humans, they're just, they're off the list. Yeah. Not allowed. Super dangerous, slippery slope. We don't want to screw around with that.
Yeah.
And then, which country do you think comes along and says...
That doesn't ask themselves that question.
Yeah. No, or they know that, and they just say, screw it, China. Right?
China question.
So,
China posted for an hour.
This, I don't know what his position is. I don't even know his name, but I was reading about this guy in China, and he goes along and he genetically modifies some embryos so that they have a resistance to HIV. So you can take like a needle, load it up with HIV blood, stick it into this person,
to use the word,
and
it's not going to affect them.
Will never have HIV. So, like, you could potentially eradicate HIV, but I guess a byproduct of making that gene edit also makes that person very, very smart.
Of course. I'm sure that just happens, and I'll use air quotes, by accident.
Well, no, I think it's like, it's one of the byproducts.
Okay.
Like, it's not an intended,
It's not I'm sure they didn't research that, and it meant it just happened by accident.
yeah, but they've done these trials in mice, and the outcome was that the mice actually perform a lot better when it comes to making it through a maze.
Okay.
So, their IQ goes up.
Man,
But imagine, okay, someone says to you,
and it's different, right? Because, like, you could look at it through, like, the vaccine lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could eradicate diseases with
Right.
this gene CRISPR technology, where we've eradicated diseases through vaccination. But it becomes at the point of, we're doing this before it's an individual who lives in the world.
they have no choice.
They
in
have
that.
no choice in the matter. Like, anti-vaccination people are by the thousands, it seems, and growing every day. And
Blows my mind.
It blows a lot of people's minds. I mean, it is what it is, but ultimately, if we're to live by these liberal principles that we have, those people have the right to do what they want.
Who, anti-vaxxers?
Yeah.
Okay. Hold on a second. Let's unpack that. I would say yes, and then I agree. You do whatever you want, but I don't want you in the public school system.
Okay, fair. If you're
Right.
not going to participate in the social,
Then I think that it
Of
should be mutual
our
to
society.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to participate in a herd mentality of blocking out a certain disease.
yeah,
Then you don't have to participate in the herd mentality of educating your children.
yeah.
Like,
So-
find
that's what I'm saying.
homeschool them.
These ideas challenge this perspective that we've held for the better part of a century of what we consider to be standard operating, whether it's gene editing, mandatory vaccinating, which a lot of people think that should be done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it, because it's like, if it's, if you're doing something to an entire species of the human race, just to beat out a certain type of disease,
Yeah,
then why not beat out,
all of them.
well, like, vision?
Yeah,
Why does anyone have to have poor vision?
yeah. Get rid of the glasses industry. Yeah, you have everyone.
Yeah,
born
and
with
that's a
20/20.
byproduct.
Yeah,
Imagine
And-
everyone has 20/20 and you have it for life.
and that's what we're talking about. Like, it becomes very Brave New World.
But you're saying, how is that different from vaccines, right? And I don't know. That's an interesting way to think about it,
Yeah.
because it's like, okay, if I have the ability to not get polio by just having the shot,
Yeah, I'm
then
taking it.
to also have the, I would say it's kind of in the same realm, the ability to not have to have poor vision
Yeah.
by just getting this gene edit.
And I'm just, that's the level that, the West is having these discussions about vaccinations. Meanwhile, they're just diving into gene editing.
Yeah.
It's just, we're going to find ourselves in very interesting times. We are in very interesting times, and it's only going to get, weirder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, we like to talk about things and debate about things. Other parts of the world don't.
Mm-hmm.
They just double down on it.
Shoot first, ask questions later.
Later, yeah. We'll figure out we'll iron out the details of this problem later on. But for right now, we want to try this out, right? It's just.
Hypothetical question: if you were to be able to pick and choose, like if you were to have another kid,
On the way.
oh,
Yeah.
congrats!
Thank you.
How long?
Oh man, like 5 weeks.
Seriously,
Yeah, like check my phone and make sure she's not
going right now.
we're good.
Shit.
Yeah, no.
I haven't seen. Oh, you know what? I did. I saw you out at the pumpkin patch back in December, and she had a little.
Yeah,
she had a
she
little
would have a
bump.
little bit. Yeah, she's very much pregnant now.
Do you know if it's a boy or girl?
Baby boy.
Okay,
Yeah,
Cool.
exciting stuff.
that's awesome.
So could I have turned him into a Michael Jordan type athlete?
Right. Or So what would be that
Set me
attribute
up with
that
a
you
good
would
ner-
pitch for?
good
Would it be
nursing
physical?
home.
Would it be physical? Would it be health? Or would it be IQ? Right?
Or all of the above.
Yeah. Or like, insane talent of
Artistic talent.
right.
Anything, yeah.
Crazy singer, crazy songwriter, whatever.
Man, it's crazy times, like I said. I got no answer. I don't know.
I think it'd be IQ all the way.
Why not?
Yeah. IQ and health.
IQ and health. Live long.
Yeah.
No, it's...
I'm glad that smarter people than us have these discussions, because if it were left to you and I think we would have designer babies really fast.
Create the superhuman race coming around the corner. Yeah. Oh, it's just mind blowing. The kind of stuff that'll keep you up at night if you think about it for too much.
Yeah. What was something else that we were going to talk about?
Not to bring back Brave New World, but take your Soma and go to bed.
Yeah. Have you read that recently?
Oh yeah, I read it. Reread it again back in the fall.
Yeah.
I read it in 1984, probably again within the last year or so.
Yeah.
Which was quite the trip.
I read most of George Orwell's books.
Yeah.
1984, I think, is that and Animal Farm are the ones.
Those are the two that are most people are.
I read Down and Out in Paris and London, I think it's called.
I never read those ones either.
Yeah. And I read a bunch of his manifestos, which are interesting.
Yeah.
But this is like, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah. I reread them back in probably within the last 12 months. I reread both of them.
Yeah.
Which was quite the trip. And
it's crazy how right he was, though. And not only that, what's the other guy? Fahrenheit 451?
I haven't read that yet.
That's a stellar book.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'll add it to the ever-growing stack.
Yeah. It's like the premise is everything, all the building structures are fireproof, right?
Yeah.
And so they outlaw books and reading to try to kind of cull the population and control them.
Yeah, okay.
Keep them dumb, right?
Yeah.
And there are, desperados out there that still hold and hoard books.
Yeah, okay.
And if you find out that someone has books, you call the fire department, they come to that house, and they burn it down.
Oh my God.
They burn all the books, and they kill the person inside.
Can't have that.
Yeah.
No,
it's a pretty cool premise for a book. But
yeah,
it's
that is a cool one.
Yeah.
I'll have to add it, like I said, to the ever-growing stack.
Yeah.
The one I'm reading right now is an interesting one because I find a lot of parallels on a more local level. Mm-hmm. It's the maritime rights movement of the 1919 to like 1927.
What's that about?
So back in the early part of the turn of the 20th century, they limited a lot of the Senate and Parliament seats. Parliament seats from the Maritimes. There was a downgrading of their representation in Ottawa.
Okay.
And then there was a lot of changes to the railroad freights that pushed a lot of maritime businesses out of production. So Nova Scotia, PEI, and New Brunswick really started to make, instead of representing each one province, they really started to work together to try and change things federally in Ontario. And just a lot of the discussion, like especially around like the railway rates. So like freight rates jumped through the roof. So any manufacturer in the Maritimes was like, well, I'm paying extra money. And this is during like the Western expansion. So the prairie, everyone's settling out in the prairies. That's where all the prosperity and opportunity is, like it is today, right?
Yeah. Interesting parallel.
Exactly. That's why I said I'm reading this book, and there's a lot of interesting parallels. And so, manufacturing just like started moving to Ontario because the freights were less to get things further across Canada. There was no protections from the federal government for maritime manufacturing. The Depression hit really hard, the post-World War I Depression. Right. So, just in 2008, we had a collapse here. A lot of people think there's another one coming soon. Yeah. So, I'm starting to see these, like, very fascinating parallels. And, they talk about, like, economic nationalism, that we have to build an economy as a country, not regionally. And, you know, the train freights and the pipeline discussion have a lot of parallels as well, because the idea for Energy East was that it was going to be economically beneficial to the nation and help build Canada. And so I just see these parallels, and I'm just reading this book, and I'm like, man, we're having a lot of discussions about this right now.
Same thing, yeah.
Same thing. All the prosperity seems to be in the prairies. That's where the boom is, and you know, when they cry, they seem to get serviced first. You know, the federal government goes out and buys a pipeline that heads west, but they won't back one that heads east.
Well, it's Quebec that's holding that whole thing up, right?
It's holding that whole thing up too, and that was a big problem in this book as well, like Quebec nationalism versus Canadian as a nation, and how do we address these issues? So they, you know, I'm getting my way through it, and it's just kind of how well 100 years later we're talking the same problem.
Yeah.
You know, I foresee the maritime provinces getting very frustrated in the near future.
Well, I think that in St. John and Halifax, in this kind of whole area, I know that the railway really made Canada prosperous as a whole.
Yeah.
But imagine it if it had never happened, and that a lot of the trade still happened by way of boat.
Yeah.
I would argue that this would be some of the most prosperous parts of North America.
And it was.
In the Maritimes here.
Yeah, and it was prior to, and it was in this book, that's what the Maritimers had a problem with, that we were extremely prosperous. We had a lot of manufacturing, and, you know, there were things that the federal government did in the interest of Central Canadians in expansion out west that was to the detriment of our region.
Right.
And, you know, they did things like, it wasn't even changing the railroad freights too. They also bought a railway from Portland, Maine to Montreal. So it pretty much cut us out completely. And then they dropped tariffs on products coming in to Portland and coming into Canada.
Right.
So, like, it took away from our ports, St. John and Halifax ports. You know, it's just, it's kind of painting this picture where Central Canada doesn't have our needs even remotely at heart.
So, when it comes to the pipeline, what are your thoughts on that?
I'd rather, no. I look out of my front door, and I would have rather seen a pipeline with Canadian oil going to our refinery than see a bay full of tankers from oil from overseas.
Saudi Arabia oil.
It's just,
it's crazy that it's cheaper to get oil direct from Saudi than it is to truck it across our own country.
Do I want to have a dependency on oil forever? No. Is it going to phase out?
But,
yes.
But
not
regardless
tomorrow.
of cars,
but if we're
still going to need oil.
We still live in this era right now. I mean, you know, these Green New Deals and these visionist plans for the future are great that they're being talked about. But there's a lot of people who live in the now that want to see things and want prosperity. And I have a hard time seeing oil tankers unloading oil in the bay when I know there could be oil
push it across.
Push it. And then people say, oh, well, this refinery isn't. Well, then just let's invest. Let's make it work with what we have here nationally. I'm all for energy independence.
Wait, I thought that the holdup had more to do with Quebec not wanting us to lay.
I'm sure it's multifaceted, the different holdups that have.
Is there something wrong with the refinery where it can't produce or it can't refine the oil that comes from Canada?
I've heard stories from people that may be in the know that may not be in the know.
Yeah,
but that's not.
Could be hearsay.
It could be hearsay.
Yeah.
But my thing is I want to see energy independence for Canada.
100%.
I don't want us to rely on foreign producers, foreign oil. I want to see energy independent. I want us to rely on ourselves. And I think Canadians want that too. They want to, make their lives prosperous on the back of their own work, and not be influenced by outside our nation. So, I mean, I would have loved to have seen it. Yeah. It would have been...
Call me a tree hugger, but I think that if we could get away from oil altogether and have everyone have a Tesla battery pack in their basement...
Wouldn't it be nice?
Bunch of solar panels on the roof.
Wouldn't it be nice?
A windmill in the backyard.
Wouldn't it be nice? Yeah.
Yeah. But
wouldn't it be nice? I know. I would like to see it too. I mean, I'm not...
This new place that I'm getting, you saw pictures of it.
Yeah.
Or you've been out there.
Drove by.
It's flat roof. And I'm like...
You're lining up some solar panels.
I think so. I think I'm going to do that. It's
I don't blame you.
It's electric water baseboard that runs through the place.
Okay, yeah.
And it's got a...
Weird.
Yeah, and it's got a boiler, an electric boiler in the basement. So I'm asking around trying to figure out how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And I guess it's in and around what oil costs.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking like throw a couple panels up there, get a battery pack in the basement, and I'm now paying nothing to heat my house.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it's going to cost for the panels. I got to figure that part out.
I'm
sure it's not cheap. Yeah. I'm sure it's not cheap, but
it's just, I don't know. It's such a difficult question and such a heated debate to get into.
Yeah.
I mean, I know people that were completely against it for great reasons, and people for it for great reasons.
Yeah.
But when we're talking Canada as a nation, what do we have to do, to feel like we are one? I mean, regionalism's always been an issue. It was an issue at the time of Confederation. Like immediately after Confederation, we had anti-Confederate governments in Nova Scotia. We had anti-Confederate governments in New Brunswick. I mean, it's almost like it was a bit of a bad deal. And then the West blew up and everyone expanded out there and kind of forgot about these grumblings. But I flip through this book and I just see so many parallels to what we have now.
It's crazy.
We can't build a pipeline and Wayne's been talking about it a bunch. Blaine Higgs has been talking about one, but it seems to fall on deaf ears because the government already bought one out in BC.
Right.
So it's like, here we are again. How do the Maritimes fit into Canada?
Yeah.
We're east of a province that at times has no interests.
Right.
Right. That very much wants to be their own and stand on their own grounds. And
I think that contention is not so much to do with the language as much as it is to do with, and I read this on a placard on the, I read this on a placard in Halifax down on the waterfront.
Yeah.
Talking about how the English came in and kicked all of the French out of Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
you know
they did
about
that in New Brunswick too. Yeah,
okay. So they sent them packing. They sent them packing.
They went to Louisiana.
Yeah. They went down to what's the upper part there of Dominican Republic?
Haiti.
Yeah. They went down there. They went back to
it was a French
Paris.
colony in Haiti.
They went to Africa.
Yeah.
So
the Acadian
like the English killed a ton of the French.
Yeah.
And I think that it's just a long-standing grudge.
Yeah. No kid, eh? Look at the French Anglo history.
Yeah. You will not build your pipeline in our backyard because you killed so many of our relatives.
Or without paying us for who we are, right?
They want
That's what I said, like, were the bribes not enough?
Yeah.
That's what I said. Were the bribes not enough to make it happen?
Yeah.
And it's this fascinating tidbit of Canadian history that we have this province, Quebec.
Yeah.
When the French turned over Acadia or New France to Britain, and for whatever reason, the British, for once in their life, were okay with another nation in there that wasn't under their heel. It's a lingering issue. And I mean, when you listen to political commentators that, like to think about what nations are to fall apart or break apart, they talk about the UK and constant referendums in Scotland, with the BritX, how does Ireland factor into it? And, Canadians have to realize that that's that question applies to our nation as well. I mean, how do we continue? Well, how do we continue to be a nation with a nation inside of it?
Right.
And it's not just Canadian nations, First Nations too.
Mm-hmm.
We have to figure out a way how to get all these people together and get them to continue to work together. And it's always worked because of the prosperity of the middle class. So if we're losing on that prosperity, people start turning against one another. And that's what we see, I think, across North America.
Right.
There's a lot of people out there that think these giant nations like the US and Canada just are doomed to fail, that they won't hold together because they're too culturally distinct. And when prosperity isn't the name of the game, that eventually they'll fall apart. I mean, it's something we have to be conscious of.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, whole new ball game.
Weird world.
Yeah.
Interesting times, as they say.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're at a little over 2 hours.
Oh, man. Flies by, eh?
Flew.
You're having fun.
Yeah.
I didn't doubt it. My wife was like, how long do you think this will be? I was like, it'll probably 2 hours seems to be par for the course for most podcasts,
yeah.
Right? So I was like, yeah, don't expect. I'll try and make it home for dinner.
All right, well, we're gonna wrap it up then. Thanks for listening, folks, and you want to say anything?
Thanks for having me, Harrison.
Right, yeah.
I mean, this like I said, I've been a long time podcast listener. This is something I've always wanted to do, and I didn't feel like dealing with mics and headphones and computer programs, not my strength. So when you asked me to come on, I was like, sure, man, I'll be there, and I'll come again for sure. Yeah. I'll come again for sure. So
we got a pretty long roster of folks that
I'm sure
are lined up.
Yeah.
I'm
glad to hear it.
May or June now with bookings.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm glad to hear it.
So,
and I mean, Brent was awesome. I listened to that. Yeah. That guy's a great dude.
He's an awesome guy.
He's an awesome dude. I'm a member of the Tool Library.
You?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah. The biggest for a homeowner, you want to do jobs and you're like, I don't have the tool for this. And that's like the biggest cost, right?
He's got everything.
Like, do I need to buy a new circular saw, or I can just go grab one from Brent.
Yeah.
And then I joined as a wood shop member too, so I can use the tools in the back as well.
It's $280.
Yeah,
I'm doing that.
Yeah, I already did. Like we made some for the new baby's room.
Okay.
And I used we milled up at my camp. We milled some wood this summer, and I took the raw boards in there, man, ripped them down, made them nice.
Does he have a mill?
He doesn't have a mill.
Okay. You milled.
I got a mill from just a dude up country. He's got a mill.
How much are mills?
I don't know, man. You can get these chainsaw ones that seem to be slick, but I think it'd be hard on your saw.
Yeah.
But no, I went in there, used the planer, used the joiner. It's beautiful stuff.
Sweet.
I love it. Love that dude. So happy for him.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see he's doing well.
No, and I'm glad you're busy. I'm interested to see.
Yeah, man.
To hear some more.
It'll be good.
Well, thanks again for having me.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.